Hi, in our new studio. Isn't this a little bit special? So we haven't done a few one of these classes for quite a while, and I'm very excited that we're back doing them again. So last week we brought you in one of our live shopping events, and I will talk to you a little bit about that in a minute. A set of stencils that we designed, and they were brought out originally as physical stencils that you bought, but we then converted them to SVG files for our ScanNCut, and we brought them onto one of our shows. So live shopping is with us here at Highlight Crafts, and it's where we go into a studio and we sell stuff and we teach you how to use the stuff, which is super exciting. And on the back of that, I wanted to do a class where we switch up our stencils and change them into something else. So a stencil, when you buy it as a physical stencil, is a stencil. That's what you do with it. When you buy it as an SVG cutting file, you can draw it, you can foil it, you can emboss it, you can resize it, you can split it, you can do all those different things that you can do when you own a ScanNCut, which is fabulous. I will say they are for ScanNCut only at this time, because Cricut imports SVG files differently. It splits it and it puts all the detail into rows if they haven't been saved in a specific format. But if we save them in that specific format, it takes all the creativity that I'm about to teach you away. So for now, this is definitely for the ScanNCut, but it's very nice to be back with you all. So the first thing I wanted to do was teach you the best way to cut Mylar on your ScanNCut. And we sell one, and it's 190 micron, which in my opinion is the thickest that I would try and cut on the ScanNCut, because the ScanNCut reads the thickness of a product because it is a true auto blade. It doesn't have a drop-down menu where you select a product from it. It reads the depth of the material, but it doesn't read the density. And the thing with having a plastic sheet, which is what Mylar is, this is what Mylar is, it's what stencils are cut out of, and a plastic mat with a moving blade and a moving platform, is that if that plastic shifts at all during that cutting process, it won't then come back and cut in exactly the same place, and you won't get a clean edge to your stencil. So there's a trick that you can do. First of all, just take one of your mats and re-tack it with pinfly stencil glue, because you need it to be sticky enough that you can pick your mat up with your fingertips. And that means that it's going to hold this plastic in place as that blade moves around it. So I've already gone ahead and done that. There is a video showing you how to do that on this YouTube channel, so you'll be able to have a look at that. Please follow those instructions, because Brother UK approved it on the back of those instructions being filmed, so you need to make sure that you follow those, please. So we've now got that stuck on, and it's burnished down. So I've used my Brother scraper. You'll find these on our website. I've just used this, and it just burnishes it down. So I brought on, let me just go back to home and we'll redo this stencil, bring it onto the screen for you. So I've got my USB, my stencils are on my USB that's plugged into the side of my SDX 1200. Doesn't matter which machine you've got, it will work in all of them. And we're going to retrieve the information from the USB, and we're going to go into fetching florals, because this is a nice floral one, and we'll use number 1. So when we press OK and set this on what we call a workable mat, as a crafter, full stop, I wouldn't cut my stencil like that, because some of the pieces are too close to each other, and I want to be able to get inks in there and blending brushes and stipple brushes and sponges. So I just like to rearrange it a little bit. And because our stencil material is 12 by 12, you can do that. So the first thing I'm going to do is get rid of that rectangle, and then I can move all these pieces and position them exactly where I want them. Now for this demonstration, I'm just going to use that little piece down there, because we don't want to spend a long time doing this. I just want to show you the trick that I've learned. So we're going to pile all the rest of them on top of each other, making sure that one of the ones that we don't want is selected, as in it's got the red select box around it. We're then going to multiple select part of the mat, because I want to keep that shape. So I'm going to drag over there so it can't see it. I'm going to press OK so it selects all of these, and I'm going to put that rest of them in the bin. Doesn't mean they're coming off the USB, just means that they're coming off that screen. And then I'm just going to move this up here. So I want it to cut it in one pass, okay? So to get it to do that, we're going to keep pressing OK until we get to please select and cut. I'm going to go in and just take half cut off because I've just been cutting some vinyl. So I'm going to take that off because you have to physically take that off. It doesn't automatically go back to normal. And then I'm going to go into this little spanner here, which is my settings. And my cutter mount, so if you remember the original CM machines, they had a pressure setting and their blade depth. The cutter mount replaces the blade depth. Now they've made it so that you can set it manually if you want to. So 0.1 mil, 0.3 mil, 0.5 mil and 0.1 mil. So I'm going to set mine on 0.1 millimeter, which means it will go along, it'll cut 1 mil depth, which will cover the depth of that mylar, but it will also allow for the density of that mylar, okay? So I'm going to press OK now, and we're going to cut it out. So super, super, super simple. So I'm going to load this in, just as you would normally. Just a word on loading your mat. Please make sure that when you load your mat, you put the mat up to the rollers and you don't let it go until you've pressed the load mat button. Because if you let it go and it moves slightly away from one of the rollers, the other one will grab it and the one where it's moved won't, and it'll twist your mat. And once your mat's twisted, it's very unlikely you'll get it to load properly again. So just be aware of that. And then all I'm going to do is press start. Now this is what I mean by a true auto blade. It goes along and it reads the depth of that material, okay? I've increased that blade depth knowing that the density of this, and the density is, in my head, is how easily can you tear a product. So card, you can tear really quite easily. Mylar, you can't tear at all because there's no fibres for the machine to break it. You can't tear it. So that makes it a dense product. So if it's dense, you need a deeper blade depth to cut through that density, if that makes sense. And don't forget, we do sell these mylar sheets on our website. I think you get 10 for $14.99, which is really good. And it means that you can get lots of different pieces on one stencil, so you're not storing lots and lots of bits of stencils, which I really like. These stencil designs are also, you can cut them out of vinyl. You can cut them, you can foil them with your foiling starter kit. You can emboss them with your embossing starter kit. You can draw them with your pens. Just because it says stencil files doesn't mean they have to be stencils. You know, they can be whatever you want because it's a cutting file, basically, which is super cool. And then you can resize them. I wouldn't make them much smaller, and I'll explain why when we go into Canvas Workspace, because the ScanNCut needs a 3mm turning point. There is a way of you checking what the smallest part is, and I'll show you that as well. So all it's doing now is going around and cutting this. Now it's going deep enough to get through the density of that product and cut it from underneath. So if I unload this now, if I just remove this here, you can now see that I've got that stencil. If I move that out of the way, you can see there that that's now cut as a stencil, which is just fabulous. You also have these pieces that are left over. Now, the joy of cutting your own stencils, and sometimes you'll do this and other times you won't, is that you get all these little pieces. So you get all the waste bits left behind. Now, these you can keep. So I have mine in a folder with a cello bag with these stapled to the stencil, or in a pouch with the stencil, because these you can use to mask off. So if you just want to do brown on the stem or green on the stem, you can mask everything else off. So don't just automatically think, oh, I won't need those. Keep them. If it gets to a stage where you don't need them, fine, put them in the bin. Or, even better, use alcohol ink on them and colour them and use them for another project. And if you want to know, so if you coloured them all, put alcohol ink on and coloured them, leave them to dry. Then you can use your stencil and position them back in. So put a little bit of spray adhesive on the back of each piece, put it into your stencil, lift the stencil away, and the adhesive will keep all those pieces in place. See, waste not, want not, right? I love it when we do things like that. Right, so what we're going to do now is I'm going to take you into Canvas Workspace. And Canvas Workspace is nothing to be scared of. I've had a lot of questions recently asking me why I'm using the web app version rather than the downloadable version. Honestly, it's your personal preference. I am a very simple crafter. I learn the bit I need to learn to do the next bit I want to achieve. So for me, working with the web app version on my laptop, every time I hover over something, it tells me where it is, which is perfect. So as a reminder, I know which button's which. There is a downloadable version, and that has drop-down menus. My memory at the moment, remembering where all those things are, would drive me crazy. So honestly, there's no difference really. You just work with the one that makes you happier and which sits best with you. That's all there is to it. So if we go into our stencils, first of all, so I'm going to retrieve that information again from the USB, and we're going to use one of our charismatic stencils. And we're going to use All You Need Is Love, a song there somewhere, very famous one. And we're going to press OK. So the file gives you the outside edge, the detail, another outside edge, a different detail, another outside edge, and the sentiment. What I'm going to do is send all that lot into Canvas Workspace, apart from the squares, because I don't need the squares, right? If you wanted to create something like, let me find it, that, what you would do is just literally cut the outside edge. So take the square that's around the outside edge and the first layer of detail and cut that out, okay? If you just wanted the second square with the second layer of detail, you'd do that. These by themselves, these frames by themselves, will cut into your cardstock like that, so it won't cut out, but we can make it cut out. It's easier for me to show you than it is to tell you, so let's just get on with it. So what I'm going to do first of all is just select that square, put that in the bin, get rid of that one. We're going to use our select arrows here to move that red select square to the squares. So that one I can put in the bin, and that one I can put in the bin. And then I've got All You Need Is Love, I've got the outside detail, and I've got the inside detail, okay? So I'm going to press OK, and I'm going to save that into the cloud, and then I'm going to recall it in Canvas Workspace, and we're going to break it down and do different things with it, because that's the joy of having it. It's a cutting file, okay? Right, so now we're in Canvas Workspace. Now, when you send a file into Canvas, if Canvas is already open, you need to refresh it. And to refresh it, we just go to there and we refresh. And then that file that we've just sent is right there, okay? So first things first, I'm going to make a bit more space by moving these pieces off, because we're going to work with the largest one first of all and see what we can do with this. And I'm not going to do this for every stencil, but I just want to teach you what's possible, and then you can go on and work with the others. So I'm going to just zoom in. There we go, so that's much better, right? Got a bigger space now. So the first thing I'm going to do is go to Edit and ungroup it. Okay, so now it's all individual pieces, which is super, super, super cool. So lots of all little pieces. So first things first, let's start by finding out how small the smallest part is, just by clicking on that circle. So that is 3.2 millimeters by 3.1 millimeters. So I now know if I'm keeping this pattern as it is, I'm not making it any smaller, okay? But there's a way that's really cool that we can make a smaller square using this. And this is where having it as a cutting file that hasn't been compounded means that you can get to the detail. So if this was a Cricut file and this had been compounded, it would see it as one piece. So you wouldn't be able to ungroup all this detail, okay? This is the difference. Because you can compound it yourself in Canvas Workspace, we don't compound our files, which is why you can't use them with Cricut at the moment, because if we do, it would put all those pieces in rows at the side. It splits it. So what we're going to do is work with this, and we're going to make a smaller square. All right, so the first thing we're going to do is look at the corner. So if I just look at the corner, I can see I've got a heart, I've got another heart, I've got this part here, and then I've got this little row of hearts and circles. So if I left click now, and I'm going to get rid of this detail first of all, and I'm going to drag across to that heart there. So I'm taking out those middle pieces. If I delete that, now you can see what I've taken out. The next thing I'm going to do is left click and just drag a box around that, and I'm going to come down so I pick up those hearts and that circle, I'm going to go to edit and I'm going to group it. Okay, so now I can move this piece as one shape. And then I'm going to do exactly the same thing on the other side like this. And if you go too far up, just come back and then go to edit and group. Okay, and then I've got my two corners. Now I only need two corners because I can duplicate them and I can flip them. So now I've got those two, I can get rid of everything else. And there's an undo button. So if you ever go too far and you think, oh no, I didn't mean to do that, just undo it. And then there's a redo button too, which is brilliant. So I'm going to get rid of all that. Right, so we can now make a smaller square because we've got our corners. So let's bring this in. And let me show you the easiest way to do this. So first of all, I'm going to line those where I want them to be. So I'm looking at the distance here between those two hearts. And I'm going to try and make it similar to the distance between the lines in the actual stencil design itself. Because right now, this is still going to cut into your card. It's not going to cut out because it's been designed as a stencil to cut into the Mylar. I'm going to show you how to do the other bit after. So I'm going to select both of these, and first of all I'm going to make sure that they're level. So I'm going to align them to the top, okay? So they're both level. I'm going to click off it and make sure I'm happy with that spacing. I might just move that one over, one little nudge, just to give me a little bit more room. Let's see what that looks like now. I'm happy with that. So let's grab both of those and let's go to edit and let's group those together. Now what we're going to do is duplicate that because I want two of them. So if we go into edit and go into duplicate, I can then either rotate it 180 degrees or I can flip it. So to rotate it, you would go into your properties, which is this button here, and you would type 180 into here and then close it, and that will then rotate it so it's upside down, okay? And then I'm going to nudge that up so I've got a similar distance between those hearts. Now I need to align these, so I'm going to grab both of those, go back up to edit. You can right click and edit, comes up as a drop menu if that's what you prefer, but I'm so used to using it like this, it just makes sense in my head now. So now I'm really happy with that positioning. So now we've taken those corners and we've made them a smaller square. So although you can't make the square smaller because some of the parts are too small to make smaller, you can take elements and make a smaller square, if that makes sense. Then, if I wanted to, what I could do is go back into properties and rotate that 45 degrees. In fact, first thing I'm going to do is duplicate it so we can start to play around and see how many things we can make. Because I like doing that. I like to just see what we can do. So that one can go over there. Let's now duplicate. Now let's rotate this one now. So we'll go in and we'll rotate that 45 degrees. So 45 point. Click the cross. And now I've got a diamond. So I've got a diamond and I've got a square. So that's two. Let's now go into here. Let's see what happens if we do this. Now, I haven't really planned any of this. I'm going to be really honest with you because the best way to get the best out of me is to just let me run. Just let me go and let's see what we can do because the ideas just come. Right, now, if I wanted to create a matte layer so that I can put it inside and outside this to cut it out of my card rather than it cutting in, let's see if this works. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to duplicate that again. And you'll get to see the way my brain works, which might be quite scary, but it might just help at some point along the way. If I go to edit now and I create a 2mm outward offset line and delete the original and press OK, let's see what we get. Okay, so this is really interesting because you've rotated part of the shape. It unrotates it when you create an offset line, which is really weird. So let's try something and see if this works. Let's get rid of that lot at the bottom. Let's weld this together. So let's go to edit and weld. Okay, so now if we duplicate that. I'm going to try this and see if this works, and then I'm going to try something else. Okay, so bear with. If I go to edit now and flip that way, that'll flip that upside down. So now what I need to do is overlap these two, but I have no way of knowing how much by. So I'm going to try something else with this. Let's just see if we can weld this first of all. And then let's see if this sits inside it. Okay, because I've moved it, but I had no idea by how much. So let's grab both of those. Let's go to edit and align it centrally vertically. Edit and align it centrally horizontally. And that only happens when you've rotated something. It's really weird the way it does it, but it does it. So we need to work out a solution. Right, okay, so that works. So now that is going to cut out that piece. So that piece is going to cut into that frame that we've just created. Okay, so that's one way of doing it. Now, I can't ungroup this at the moment. So if I go to edit, there's no option for me to ungroup it because it sees it as one shape. So what we're going to do is we're going to do this, and we're going to bring all of these on here like so. We're going to bring all of these onto this map. We're going to save, we're going to download it. Now you can either download it to your machine or you can download it to your computer and then re-import it in. Okay, so if I download this, and I'm going to download it. Oh, it says some parts are extended outside the image. Right, what have I done? Oh yeah, they are there, see? Tells me. Delete that, and let's delete that as well. So it can't download it when things are outside of that matte area. So if I now download this, and I'm going to download it to my PC rather than my machine, okay, just because it's quicker than changing the cameras backwards and forwards. So I'm going to press close. And I'm then going to go to, I'm going to save it as a project first. So project plus, just in case, always save it just in case, because you're saving it into the cloud. So there's no storage issues at all. Right. So if I now go to SVG and choose file and go into my downloads, I'm hoping, there we are, that's there. So if I now use that file now and press OK, I'm hoping that now when I click on that, I can ungroup it. Yes, I can. See, now then you see. So now what we've got, if I zoom in, is we've got an inside line and an outside line. So if you want that to cut into your card, but with an aperture in the middle, you're going to align the inside piece of that frame that we created with the detail, and that will then cut into your card, but you'll have an aperture, a bit like that. So you'll have the outside, but you'll have an aperture in the middle, which is super cool, right? This is what I mean. You're now making shapes from shapes, and everything in the world is shapes. You just have to learn to look at it and break it down into shapes. And once you start doing it on a regular basis, this is more invaluable than you can ever imagine. Because once you see things in shapes, it's so much easier. Right, so, but then we also have, so that will cut with an aperture. If I wanted it, so if I edit and ungroup that now, so if I ungroup that, if you wanted it to cut out but without an aperture, you would just use this part. So drag both of those over there, go to edit and align it centrally vertically, edit and align it centrally horizontally, and then edit and group it. So you've then got that. Now that will cut it out like that. Now obviously it's not that design, but it will cut around the outside edge, but without the detail in the middle, without the aperture. So you can just then keep going, which is fabulous. Right, so let's duplicate that for a start, because that's another one that we've created. So we've got that. Let's ungroup this now. Get rid of that outside edge. So you've now got this. Now that can be a card blank, because you've now created a different shape for your card blank, haven't you? Which is super cool. So, see what I mean? And then you've also got this as a frame. So that's a new one. Oh gosh, this is when my brain starts going, right, and then I can do this, and then I can do this, and then I can do this. So let's duplicate that. Let's move that over there. Let's align both of these, because this is another one that we've created. And you know what? I could spend weeks doing stuff like this. I love it. It's fabulous. So we're going to group this together. So that's your other one. So that's the one that will cut into your card but with an aperture. That will cut out of your card but without an aperture. We've then got one which will cut it out as a frame. So if we duplicate that, can you see why I get lost in Canvas Workspace? And you know what? I'll be the first one to tell you, and I've probably told you this 100 times. I was like, don't want to do it, not interested, never going to craft on a computer, not my thing. And now I live in it, literally. If I could live in Canvas every day and just do stuff like this, I'd be very happy. And I'm very happy that it's part of my job because I just love it. Right, so we're going to group that together. So now we've got that. So now you've got the frame with it cut into it. You've got the frame by itself. You can create a card blank from that. You can create a card blank with an aperture. In fact, let's do that. Let's undo that, ungroup it again, and let's just duplicate those. So let's duplicate that. So we've got another one of those. Let's go to the aperture in the middle. Let's duplicate that. So we've got another one of those, like so. And then let's group all that together again. So edit and group. Right, so if I want this now to be a card blank, so I'm going to align these so that that aperture is back in the middle. I have to, first of all, duplicate the outside edge. So I've got two, because I want one for the front and one for the back of the card. And then I need to divide this. Now, divide in my head is a digital punch. So right now the ScanNCut sees that as a solid shape. The outside edge is a solid shape with the inside, which we see as an aperture, it sees as a shape sat on top. And I want divide to send that digital punch down and punch that aperture through that back piece, okay? Because then it sees it as one shape. So to do that, we've selected both. We just go to edit, we go down to process overlap, and we divide it. Because if I want to weld something to this, I have to divide it first, because weld has to overlap all the parts of what you're trying to digitally glue together, which is what welding is. So if I now move that piece out of the way, I've then got that as another set of nesting shapes. But now this, I can create a card blank. So if I bring both of these in together, like this, and just slightly overlap one over the other, I'm going to do it a little bit more than that, so it aligns, so it overlaps here, here, and here, okay? In fact, I'm going to do it one more just to add a little bit more strength to that. If I then grab both of those and go to edit, and first of all align them so that they're level either top or bottom, doesn't matter, and then go to edit and weld them, I then have my card blank with the aperture in the front. It's that easy, okay? It's not, and that's come from this, from a corner of one stencil. That's it. So you can just keep going. So if I undo that, I love undo. Undo's like the best thing ever. If I duplicate that, so if I go to edit and duplicate it, so I've got another one of those, move one of those, I'm going to go in here and we're going to weld those back together. You can see why buying an SVG file for ScanNCut is so creative. Now, if we'd compounded them, which is what divide does, you won't be able to do any of this. So let's see what we get if we create a 1mm inward offset line. So we'll go 1mm inward and we'll leave the original as it is. Okay, so we've got matte layers now. Let's see what happens. It will always leave the original selected, okay? So let's do now, go to edit, and let's create a 2mm outward offset line and leave the original as it is. So now you're creating your mats and layers. So you've got your outward mats and layers, you've got your inward mat and layer, and you've got your original. So now you've got a whole new label shape that you can start to play around with. This is from a corner. People ask me why I'm so obsessed with this machine. Because you can do this. And Canvas Workspace free. So there's nothing holding you back except you. Okay? Right, now then, I could then put an aperture in the front of here and create a card shape again. So if we wanted to do that, if we go back here and we choose a basic shape, let's choose a circle, for example. So let's go down and find the circle. We can then make that circle smaller and we can position it in the middle of here. Okay, so we're going to do exactly the same thing that we did before. You decide how big you want it. We're going to duplicate that outside edge so that we've got a back for our card. You will lose, I'm just warning you, Canvas is very addictive. And you'll just keep pressing buttons and see what happens. Because you've got an undo and you've got a redo, so it takes the fear away completely. So let's align these centrally vertically and centrally horizontally. And then let's divide it. So we punch that through again. So divide. Divide gives me that circle. And then we can go back in and we can weld now these two together. So now we can grab both of those, go to edit, align it, remember, so that it's level, and then weld it. And now you've got a different shape, card shape, with an aperture in the middle. It just keeps going. And that's just using that little corner. That's all it is. So let's see what else we can do with that corner. So I'm going to project plus this, because I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. I've got 10 things out of that corner. I've even made a card blank out of a corner. It's crazy. It really is just magic and I love it. It's so exciting. Right, so we'll project plus that. So we're saving it. So we can come back to that at any point. And we'll go back to our original now. So we'll get rid of all of this lot. Delete that off because I've saved it. And now I can go back and go back into my projects. So let's find this again. And let's do what we did before. Let's get rid of this one because I don't want to work with that yet. And I don't want to work with that yet. And then let's ungroup this and let's go back to that corner and see if there's anything else we can get out of it, because I'm sure there is. So if we go to edit and ungroup, right now, at this point, it's gone, you've done too many things and now you can't ungroup me anymore. Plus, we've also saved it. So we're going to resend it. If that happens, resend it from your machine, okay? So don't worry about it. Just go back to your ScanNCut and save it again. That's the thing, okay? Because it will get to a stage where it goes, nope, not doing that. Or you can save it back to a download and then re-import it. But if I show you this, if I save that into the cloud again, and then remember we need to refresh, and at any point you can delete some of these out of Canvas if it gets too complicated. But you can see that was the one that we designed. That's where we made all those shapes. So this is the one that's newly imported. So just tap on that, bring that in, get rid of that one, don't need that. Get rid of that one, don't need that, and then we'll work with this again. So this time it should now let me ungroup it. There you go. So let's get that corner again. So let's get rid of that bit to there and delete that. And then let's get that bit to, oh no, sorry, this bit here. Ignore that bit, Melanie. One of them, delete. And then get rid of this lot over here. Get rid of all that. Delete that. Right, I've got my two. Rude. Bear with. I'm a bit too fast for it sometimes. Delete. Right, so I've now got my two corners again. So let's grab that one and group it. And let's see what else we can come up with. And let's grab that one and group it. Okay, so I've got two facing in the opposite directions. Yes, I could duplicate it and flip it, but actually I just want to try something else. So if I now rotate this, let's have a look. I want to rotate that. Grab this and rotate it so that it's level. So what I'm going to do now is use the grid on the mat to make sure that I'm lined up like that. Okay, I'm happy with that. And then let's take this one and let's rotate that one. Actually, no, I'm going to get rid of that one now, because what I can do with this now is duplicate that. So I've got two, and then flip it that way. So it's upside down. Right, so now I've got two here now. So I'm going to grab both of those and I'm going to align them so they're aligned centrally vertically, and then I'm going to group that together. Okay, so we've now got this. So now we can duplicate this. Now, if I go to edit and click on this quickly, it gives me a few. I worked that bit out. I was like, okay, that gives me a few. Now, if you want to get an equal distance between all of these, the best way to do it is to send it back to your machine. So I'll tell you what we'll do. We'll do that now. I'm going to do that because there's a few things I can teach you with that then as well. Look at this. See, look at this. We're pattern building now. Do you know what? I love my job. How fabulous is that? Right, let's send it back. Come on, Melanie, focus. Download to my ScanNCut. Right, and the reason I do this is because on your ScanNCut there's something called pattern interval, and it's on all ScanNCuts. It doesn't matter which one you've got, it's on all of them. So it makes no difference whether you've got an SDX or a CM. First one, latest one, makes no difference. It has a pattern interval, and a pattern interval is the distance between the shapes. So we can be more specific when we're lining things up like this to make a pattern. Okay, so if we retrieve the information, this time from the cloud, it'll bring those shapes onto what we call a workable mat. So I've now got those four. If you don't have internet, can you use a USB? Andrew's asking me. What for, love? Yes. So if your machine isn't Wi-Fi enabled, or you don't have the internet, well, if you didn't have the internet, you wouldn't be able to use Canvas, would you? If it's not a Wi-Fi enabled machine, you can download it to your computer and then right click it and send it to a USB. Then take the USB out, plug it into your ScanNCut and do that. Yes, absolutely you can. Right, so let's say we want to put all four of these in a straight line with an equal distance in between them. All right, so we're doing a scrapbook page and we want this to go right through the middle so that the pattern goes right through the middle, either side of the photograph, draws the eye into the photograph, and that tells the reader that that's the most important thing on the page, okay? So to do that, we're going to use what we call our arrangement function. So I'm going to move these any which way I want them to be, okay? We go into here, and this is your arrangement function. So this will put them, will rotate these shapes any which way it needs to get the most out of your card if you're cutting them. This one will rotate them up to 180 degrees, and this one will keep them in a straight line. But there is a tool here, so wherever there's a spanner, there's something behind it. So pattern interval starts at 1 and you can increase it as it goes up. So the distance between them increases. So let's see what it's like if we just have it on 1 and then we press keeping them in a straight line. So now if I press OK and zoom in for you, you can see you've got all four of these, but there is an equal distance between each one of those, okay? So then what I could do is group those together, and that's a border then that could go right through the middle of a card. It could go vertically, it could go horizontally, you could get it to go diagonally if you wanted to. It's entirely up to you. Now then, what if I want those two underneath there, but still with the same pattern interval? You have to fool it into thinking that it's got a smaller space to work in. So if I go into here and I change my cut area, and I make my cut area smaller so it can only fit 2 next to each other, it then has to put the other 2 underneath. So let's see what happens now when we go to our arrangement function again, and this time put those underneath. Right, can you see how it's moved them slightly over this way? That's because it's got too much space here. So if we go back in and change that cut area again, and we move it further over, and then try again, and it is a little bit of trial and error this. It's telling me there's not enough space now, so I've moved it too far over. So what we need to do is go back in and move this out a little bit, and you've just got to play around with this, and it will depend on the pattern as well and the shape. So let's try this now. Still telling me there isn't enough space, so let's go back and make it a little bit wider again. Let's do that and put that under there, and then let's try now. Right, still wanting to put them there, so if we do that, right, I don't know. Okay, let's try this. So let's group, let's get rid of these 2 first of all. Well, let's see if we can make this work, because there's no reason why it shouldn't. Let's group those 2 together. So let's multiple select everything on the mat, go to object, edit, and group it. Right, now let's duplicate that so we've got 2, and let's see now what happens. So I need to come in to about 3/4 of an inch. Let's see if I can change that again. I'm going to just drop that in there, and let's see if it now will put those. Melanie, come on, there you go, in a straight line. Come on, you know you want to, there you go. All right, so group them together, because they were 2 separate ones. It could fit one in between the duplicated one. Now you've grouped it, it can't fit it in, because it can't go over to the right and it can't go over to the left, so it has to put it underneath. So now that's another pattern. So now, if we group that, so if we multiple select everything on the mat and group that, we can then make our cut area bigger again. And we can ask it to do 4 of those. And then we can go into here and we can do that. And right, so same thing again. Right, it wants to move it, so let's put that in the bin. Bear with, I'm getting excited now. Put that in the bin, put that one in the bin, group those 2 together. So group everything like that, duplicate it so you've got 2, and then use your arrangement function, like that, and then you've got a new pattern. Got a brand new stencil, look at that. From a corner. Amazing, right? You can align them if that's what you want to do, but aligning doesn't give you the same pattern interval in between each one. Aligning will just line it up to the left or the right. It won't position it with the same pattern interval. So nice idea, Andrew. So let me tell you a little bit about Andrew. Andrew is our producer here, and he's very, very good at what he does. But he also used to be a producer at Create and Craft, and he's produced thousands of ScanNCut shows. So every now and again, he'll give me a hint or tip, and I'm like, okay. And then when I go, yes, but, he'll go, it's very funny. It's very funny. So look at all that lot. Did not come up with the box around reflection. Andrew, I can remember, he's getting on one now. I'm going to have a row with him now. So what is it? So when we first did Tattered Lace USBs, we wanted to do the Charisma, which is the coloured artwork, and we couldn't work out how to do it for ScanNCut. And I remember sitting in the green room one day opposite Stephanie at the old Create and Craft at Newark Road, and I went, oh, it's a rectangle. She went, what's a rectangle? I went, the solution to Charisma, it's a rectangle. She said, I have no idea what you're talking about, but I need you to make it work. So she said, what time do you do your show? I said, I'm on till 4 o'clock. She went, oh, it's 4 o'clock. Right, I need you to finish your show, go up to Derbyshire, go to John Peters and tell him that you need to try it. So I did, and within an hour, we had Charisma nailed. Andrew reckons he worked it out before. No, absolutely not, Andrew. Absolutely not. And I'll tell you why, because if that had happened, I would have given you the credit, because that's what I'm like. Anyway, right, back to this. You've now got a brand new stencil from a corner of one stencil. Right, then you can save that. So let's save that back into the cloud. Let's save that back into the cloud. It tells me it's a group pattern, which is fine because I can ungroup it in Canvas anyway. So I'm not worried about that. If you saved it onto your machine, you can't then come back and ungroup it. So we've now created a whole new design. So let's project plus that one. So we've got that and we don't need to go back and create that again. And you can see now how it's really, really, really addictive, right? It's very addictive. So let's get rid of that and let's refresh. And then we've also got our stencil there saved. So you've got a whole new one to start playing around with, which is super cool. Right, I'm going to go back to this and see if it will let me still ungroup. And if not, we'll send it again. So I'm going to stick with this one stencil because you know what, you can do loads with it. Right, let's see if it'll allow me to ungroup this time. Edit, yes it will, ungroup. Okay, so this time I'm just going to pick up from here. Where am I going to go? Let's go from here right the way across to there. Okay, and then I'm going to group that. So edit and group. And I'm going to move that out of the way. Now then, so we don't rotate anything, because rotating, remember, when you try and then weld it, makes it look a bit, it flips it back. Let's do the same at the bottom. Okay, so let's grab all of that across there. Go on, there you go. I do talk to it, it helps. Edit and group. There's times when I make my husband will come in and he's like, who are you talking to? I'm not talking to myself. I know, but I get the answer I want then, don't I? That's the thing. Right, now on this one, you've got that heart by itself. So that's a cutting file by itself. So you've got that lovely little heart. In fact, so you know, I'm seeing butterflies everywhere. If I rotate that, and then I click on this one and I rotate that, you've then got butterfly wings that'll lift up because they don't cut out your cardstock, they cut in. So then you've got flowers and four-leaf clovers and all sorts. Right, Melanie, focus. I have to keep doing this to myself as well because I could just go on for hours and hours and hours. Right, so let's get rid of that as well. So rather than, again, rotating them, let's just group these. So we've got 4 separate pieces now. And then let's do this one. And let's group that. Right, so immediately I've got a border. So I've got a border vertically and I've also got a border horizontally. So I can grab both of those, get them to where I'm happy with the distance in between. Grab both of those and align them to the top of the bottom, like that. I could have this one a little bit wider if I wanted to, so I could bring that further away. So let's do that one now. So let's edit and align that to the left, and then edit and group. So that might be that you want to cut that into your card, and then you've got a piece of ribbon or a sentiment that goes through the middle. So now we're looking at border punches because it's going to punch into. What I want to do is find out whether I can create a matte layer for this one. So let's group these together first. And let's see if we create an offset line. So duplicate it first. And I always duplicate it a couple of times first, just so that I've got it in case I think of something else while I'm at it, which more often than not I tend to. Right, so let's create let's do 2 millimeters and see what we get. A 2 millimeter outward offset line, and let's delete the original because I've duplicated it so I can. If you don't delete the original, you get lots of lines and then it becomes confusing. Right, so now I've got all that. So now if I grab all of that, because all those pieces, oh hello, are overlapping. I should be able to weld that together and that will give me a matte layer. There you go. So now I've got a perfect matte layer. So this will cut into your cardstock. This will cut it out of your cardstock. If you don't want these pieces in the middle, you can either go back in, save it, and then recall it, and then it will allow you to ungroup it, and then you can get rid of all those little diamonds. Or if we undo this and take it back to where we were and undo it to the original, this is why I love undo, and we do a 4mm outward offset line. So edit, we do a 4mm, nope, 4. This never used to be on a slider, I'm glad it is now. 4mm outward and OK. Right, let's weld this, see what we get now. So let's go to edit and weld. Now it gives me that without the diamonds. But what if that's too wide? Because I don't like 4mm outward offset line. It's a bit too wide for the project because this is nice and delicate and this is wide, this is chunky. Doesn't work in my head. Might work in yours and that's fine, but in my head it doesn't. So what we're going to do now is select that shape. We're going to go back in and we're going to create a 2mm inward offset line from the offset. And that will give me now a 2mm border all the way around the outside of this because I've created an inward offset from the original offset. Oh, do you know what? And it's free. Just saying, it's free. So now you've got a border punch. Now I have a border punch similar to that from EK Success that's probably 20 years old and it cost me about $24.99, but I've now got that in all those different sizes. So I can cut it in, I can cut it out, and you will just keep going. Honestly, there's no, that you then do something else and that creates some of that, and then you do something else and something else and something else and something else. And let's see if we can do this. Let's see if this works. I don't know whether it will or not, just because it's a stencil design to start with, but let's try it. Let's see what we get if we do this. So let's get 2 of those. I'm just going to nudge that over slightly so I'm a little bit closer. And I'm going to align these to the top. And sometimes things work and sometimes things don't. And then you'll wake up in the middle of the night going, oh, I bet if I did it this way it'll work, because that's what happens to me. So let's do 3 of these. So we've got 6 rows in total. And again, I would send this back to my machine and I would do it so that I've got the correct pattern interval in between. But just for now, let's just do this. Let's move them up like that, because I don't want it to look like there's a break in it at all. So click on that one, that's grouped. Click on that one. I'm going to move that to the right a little bit and then click on that one. Right, let's grab all of this and let's align all of this to the top and let's group it. Now, if I want to put this inside another shape, I need to divide it first. So I'm going to bring it in a shape. So let's bring in a basic shape like this. And let's move this down so I've got the distance that I want there and there. And let's pull this down. Oh, come on. Pull that down to there and pull that over to there, and then I'm going to divide it. So I'm going to select both of those and I'm going to punch that detail through that rectangle. Okay, so let's go to edit and divide, see if it works. Might do, might not, but until we try we'll never know, will we? Might be too much of a pattern. Now this is where the downloadable version is slightly different, because if something takes too long on here it says it's timed out. If you do it on the downloadable version it's a little bit more powerful, but it's not very often that it does it. But now it's punched all that through. Okay, so what I'm hoping now is that I'll be able to put that pattern into another shape. So if I group all this, because it's now separated all this. Oh, hang on though. See, this is where it starts. So now if I just grab that line. See, I did warn you that my brain goes off on tangents. Right, let's go to edit and group that before I do anything else. Because now I've got another design. Just there, look at that. Right, let's get rid of one. Let's get rid of the bottom row. Sorry, this is where I drive myself crazy because I just keep going. But it's fun. Right, so now I've got that with the hearts at the top and the bottom. I can group that together because that'll cut into my card. So let's group that, move that out of the way. And you can see, I mean, it's crazy now. So now you've got that pattern, but without the hearts. So now you can start to build a whole new stencil from that and a whole new border. Madness. Right, so let me bring in let's say we wanted to put this in, let's do an octagon. Right, so we've brought an octagon on. I'm going to bring in this here. I'm going to put the octagon in the middle of here. So if I select both of those and I align it centrally vertically and centrally horizontally, that should be in the middle of that pattern then. Let's have a look. Yeah, right, so first thing I'm going to do is duplicate that. So I've got another one. You'll see why in a minute. And then I'm going to right click. I'm going to right click on this and I'm going to send it to the back, or you can go to edit and order. Don't send it backwards, send it to the back. So the reason that you're sending it to the back is because you want to punch the pattern into the shape. So the shape needs to be behind the pattern for that to happen. So now when I grab both of those, I'm hoping this is going to work. We go to edit and we remove overlap. Let's see if this will work. It looks like it has. Right, so let's move that out of the way. So now I've got that pattern in that shape. Now that would still cut into your card. If I now create a 2mm outward offset line and delete the original, and I bring that into there and select both of those and align them, I've now got shape that it will cut out. So that pattern that started as a part of a frame is now in an octagon. And it just keeps going. And that's the great thing about it. So if I wanted to make a card blank with that pattern inside there, honestly, it's crazy. It does just keep going. So if I go to edit and duplicate, have I grouped that? Did I group it? No, I didn't. Right, so undo that, puts that back where it was. If I click on that, on the octagon, and duplicate that, so I've got two. And I'll probably make the offset a little bit bigger now, but just to show you. So to be able to weld that to that, I need to divide this. So if I go to edit and divide, and what divide's going to do is make it see it as one piece now. So when I move that, that's all the piece that's there. So we can get rid of that because we don't need that. And now I can weld that to that. And I've got another card shape then. So let's just nudge that over there. Let's align both of those. It is so worth getting over your fear if you're scared of canvas. It's amazing. And it's and there you go, now your card shape. It's mad, isn't it? Isn't that crazy that you can do all of that? And I love it. I love that because it just gives you the versatility to be able to take something and make so much more from it. So you can cut your own stencils on your ScanNCut, which means that you don't need to buy your stencils. If you're going to paste and you want a thicker layer of paste, because that Mylar's thin, if you cut two, get a spray adhesive and glue one on top of the other. That will give you a thicker area. You could try cutting a different thickness of Mylar, but just be aware that it's dense. So you might need to it might need to go in and cut it a couple of times, which means that you need to make sure that your mat's really, really, really sticky. But that's how you can take one frame and create all those different things from it. And I love that. And also, let's say, now I've got this, which I divided, I could then put an aperture inside that. So if you wanted to make that, let's just put a square in it, for example. Let's just put a square. You can weld a square now onto the top of that. So if I just position it, and I would do it by aligning it, etc. But if I now wanted to weld that to that, if I go to edit and weld, I can now create that. So it just keeps going. And remember, there's an undo and a redo, which takes away all the fear. And you'll get to a stage where you're like, right, my head can't take in any more information. Save it. Just save it and then go back and do the next bit and the next bit and the next bit and the next bit. And right now we've already got a whole new stencil that's just going there. And then once we've made that one, we'll probably have another one. It just keeps going and going and going. And then just project and plus. Doesn't matter where the pieces are then on here. It's entirely, you know, you can just then, once you've saved it, edit, select all, and put that in the bin. Right, so the next thing, or the last thing I want to do with you, is show you how you can split a shape, because this is really cool. And it's a really good thing to know, because it means that you can make a gatefold card from your shapes. Now, you could, so let me show you what I'm talking about first of all. This is what I'm talking about. So this butterfly was one piece, and I've split it so that I can make it into a gatefold card. Now, Amanda said to me, well, could you not just cut it and then cut the card in half? Yes, you could. Absolutely, you could if that's what you wanted to do. But you can't get that extra layer inside then. So I'm going to teach you how to do it in Canvas, because it might be at some point that you want a semicircle, or you want a quarter of a circle, or you just want part of something. So if I've taught you how to do it, you know, don't you? Right, so we're going to take a shape and we're going to split it so you can create a gatefold card. And then I'm going to teach you how to make a matte layer, which we've kind of just done, but super exciting. And I'm also going to teach you how you create the inward layer, because this is, so the original butterfly, but cut out of black card. And then the white layer is a layer that goes behind it, but you see it through the detail, which is really cool. Right, so we retrieve the information from the USB, and this is one of the tempting, it's called. And I want to say it's number 2. Yeah, no, it's not. Of course, it's not, Melanie. Is it number 1? Yes. Right, so there's a bit of work to do with this after we send it into Canvas Workspace. So let's save this into the cloud, and then we'll go in and we'll do that bit of work before we get started. So remember, when you're using Canvas Workspace and it's already open and you send something in, when you go into My Projects, you need to refresh. If it's closed, so if you're designing this on a sunbed somewhere in the Caribbean, when you get back, you think, oh, I wonder if that it will be there, okay? Which just blows my mind. Right, so first thing we're going to do is get rid of this border, because I'm not interested in that right now. And I'm also going to get rid of that square. And now I've got my butterfly, but it's grouped with all the little butterflies. So first of all, let's make it bigger. So let's say we want it to be that big. And I'm going to ungroup it. So edit and ungroup then separates all the pieces of the butterflies, but also the little butterflies. So the bit of work you need to do is get rid of all these little butterflies that are around the outside edge. Now, each one of these you can resize. So you've got lots of brand new little butterfly files there. But as I come in and drag those out, you can see it picks up part of the big butterfly. So if you select one of them, and this does take a little bit of time, but it's worth it. Press Shift on your keyboard and then go in and click all the others. This is when I get frustrated, you see. So just take your time, Melanie. Be patient. I'm very patient when I'm teaching, But when it comes to doing stuff like this, I'm like, oh, just let me just hurry up. It's like when I'm driving. First time my daughter-in-law got in a car with me, and she knew me quite well by that stage. She got out and she said to Matthew, my son, she said, your mum's a very different person when she's in a car, isn't she? Especially with people that don't use their indicators and just suddenly cut you up. Not good at that. Right, so now I've got all of those selected just by holding that shift. I can delete them all at once, which is super easy. Right, so the next thing we're going to do is group all this lot together. So we're working with one piece. So edit and group. Right, I want to split this butterfly down the middle. So I need to bring in a shape that is going to split it down the middle, but also give me enough room here to be able to make it into my gatefold card. Okay, so if we just come back to the card itself, and I'll show you here, forget this bit, we're going to split this, so I'm going to need to split the butterfly there, but leave me with enough width to be able to then fold it, score it, and fold it round to create at the back of the card. That makes sense? So I want the actual butterfly to be inside the piece of card that's going to create the gatefold. That's what I'm trying to say. So if we go back and we choose our basic shapes, and you decide how big you want it to be and how much space you want around everything, etc. So the first thing I'm going to do is make this square bigger. And if you're somebody like me, that millimeters make sense in offset lines, but inches make sense in card shapes, if you go to view, at the bottom of view, you can change the unit of measurement. Now it's still in millimeters. As soon as you click off it and click on it again, it's now in inches. So that's how to do that. So I'm going to align this and I'm going to position it so it's in the middle. I'm going to zoom right in. Okay, so I'm going to zoom right in so I can see that the bottom of that square there needs to come over a little bit to the left until I'm happy with it. Oh, come on, move. This is when it drives me crazy. There we are. Right, I'm happy with that. Now I can zoom out again. Okay, so the next thing I need to do is make sure that that butterfly is centrally horizontally, so that that butterfly is in the middle of that square this way, okay, or that way, top to bottom. Okay, so I know it's right this way. I know that that line is in the middle of the butterfly. I need to make sure the butterfly is in the middle of the square so that it's got the same amount of distance at the top, from the top of the wing to the top of the square, as it has from the bottom of the wing to the bottom of the square. Right, I'm happy with that now. So I'm going to duplicate the square now. So edit and duplicate. And this square I'm going to bring in, and I'm going to zoom in. And I'm going to make sure that those two lines are on top of each other. So the left-hand side of the right-hand square and the right-hand side of the left-hand square, if that makes sense. So that they're lined up perfectly. Right, now what I'm going to do is make sure that those two squares are level. So I'm going to grab the two squares without going over the butterfly. And instead of aligning them to the top of the bottom, I'm going to align them centrally, horizontally, so that the butterfly stays where it was and the two squares are now lined up. Now I need to grab both of those, all of those pieces, including the butterfly, and we're going to use divide. And those squares are going to punch through that butterfly and split it. So divide, in my head, is the digital punch. And the reason I remember that, and this is how weird my brain is, divide begins with DI, and digital, as in digital punch, also begins with DI. I have to have all these little things going on in my head. It's like somebody asked me to remember a phone number. I have to make up a rhyme for it or a reason. It's weird. And it's because I don't have pictures or colour. So I just have to, because I have to remember it. That's how I remember it. I've been the same from being little, honestly. Mad as a box of frogs. But quite proud of it. Right, so now look, I've split it. There you go. So I've now got the right-hand side of my card and the left-hand side of my card. Isn't that cool? Right, what I want to do with this is create the gold piece, so the matte layer. that goes inside the card, so that when you fold it over, you see the gold mirror through. So basically, I'm going to take that and I'm going to make it a solid butterfly. Okay, so just like we did before, I'm going to drag right the way across here, and I'm going to group all that together. So edit and group. I'm going to group it all together. Go on then, group it, there you go. Now I'm going to create, so let's try a 3mm outward offset line. Let's see what we get. So 0.02 inches, right? This is where you can go back to, let's go to view. Let's turn it back to millimeters. There's reasons for both. Right, so if I try and create a 3mm outward offset line, it's going to tell me something that I don't like, but I'm going to show you so that you know what happens. Outward and delete the original. So I'm going to press OK. It says it cannot execute this operation with an intersecting path. So at some point, those pieces overlap, but not enough to be able to, it's really difficult to explain. The paths cross at a point where it can't create an offset line from it at 3mm. So always go in and see if you can make it bigger. So let's see if it can do a 4mm outward offset line. Grab it. Oh, there you go. Oh, sliders. 4mm outward and delete the original. Let's see if it works at 4. Still doesn't work at 4. Let's see if it works at 5. So let's do just 5 outward. Press OK. It's not going to do that either. Right, let's go smaller then. So let's go to edit and let's try a 2mm outward offset line and delete the original. Okay, let's see if it does it at 1mm, because it's done it at some point because I've done it. Let's see what we get. Let's see, 1mm outward. Okay, it's not going to let me do that at all, is it? And I think it's because of that line in the middle. So let's do what we did before. Let's bring that down there. And let's bring this down here, because if there's a solution, I want you to know what the solution is. And I don't know what the solution is yet, so we're going to try it together. So let's download it to the PC. So I don't need to mess about with that. Download started to see it. Press hold and escape. Oh, never seen that before. Press close. Right, so let's get rid of, let's Project Plus it first. Then I can get rid of it off here. See, I love this. This is like a challenge now. And I love a challenge. Right, let's go to choose file. And let's go to downloads, and there's my download. And let's press OK. Right, let's see now if I can ungroup this. So if I can edit and ungroup it, can. Right, let's see if I can get to that line there. Is that split? No, it's split, so it won't let me get rid of that bit, will it? That's a devil, isn't it? I wonder why it's doing that, because it allowed me to do it once, because I've got it. Right, let's try it again. Let's try it now. Let's group it and see if it'll allow it this time. Because I can't see. The only place there's an intersecting path is there. Let's try it again. Let's see what we get. Let's try 5mm outward. No, but that's a good idea, Andrew. For once, that's a good idea. Right, let's try. I think that's what I did. I actually think that's exactly what I did, Andrew. So I think that's what I did. So let's bring this on. Right, I think what I did was I used the original butterfly. So let's try that. Let's see if that works. No, it won't ungroup it, will it? Wonky. Oh yeah, well, there you go. Right. Sorry, but you know what? Sometimes it's worth watching stuff like that, because it means that you don't sit there and go, what am I doing wrong? Because I would, if somebody had taught me that and not shown me the finish of it, I'd be like, well, why? How did you manage to do it in the first place? And I am like a dog with a bone, just so that you know. Once I start, that's it. I've got to work it out. And sometimes that's really frustrating because sometimes it's just not doable. It drives me crazy. And that's when I wake up in the middle of the night going, I wonder if I did this. And then I have to get up and find out. Right, bear with me while I just delete these bits off. So let's go. Pressing down on shift. And I'm picking up these little bits, these little butterflies here. Right, let's delete those. Click on one, press shift again. And I'm happy that they've done this because you've got all these different shapes and it takes a few seconds. So you know what, for all those extra cutting files and apertures and matte layers and all those amazing things that you can do, frames, etc., it's worth a bit of work. I've learned that bit. I've learned to be patient doing this bit because it's worth it. Right, let's do that. Right, so at this point, let's see if it will allow me to create an offset line of this. And if it does, we know that it's that line that split it, that stopped it. So if we go to edit, let's create a 3mm outward offset line and delete the original. There we go. So you do it before you split it. There's the solution. And then we weld that. Now let's see what we get when we weld it. Perfect, there you go. So if we undo that, let's see if we can do it with a 2mm, so it's not quite as chunky, or whether we need to create the outward offset line and then create an inward offset line from that. So edit, let's try 2mm, see what we get. Outward and delete the original. Oh, that looks a bit nicer. Let's see if that works. Edit and weld. There we go. And then you get those little bits. Right, let's see if it'll do it at 1mm. Because the slimmer you can get it, the better, really, because it looks more elegant then. So let's do 1mm. I told you I haven't prepped anything. This is me just literally going with what we've got. Right, so let's see what happens when we weld that. As long as all those pieces overlap, you can weld it. If it tells you it can't weld, it's because some part of it isn't overlapped. There you go. Now look how pretty that is. So you could have that inside so that when you open that up, or if you saved that now, so you downloaded it back to your PC, brought it back in, you could ungroup it and get rid of all those pieces. But you'd have a nice, a more elegant butterfly. Right, okay, so we know that that bit works. Now then, the next bit I want to show you is really cool. So if I bring these back in, now you'd have to do this a different way if you're working on a CM machine. If you're working on a CM machine, you need to save these pieces. So download it to your PC, bring it back in and ungroup it, okay? I'll show you, because I don't know if it works or not, but we'll do it on SDX first, and then we'll go back and see if we can do it on CM. So I divided these, remember, when I brought those squares in, and I put them bang in the middle of that butterfly, so one on the left and one on the right, and I divided it to split the butterfly. Dividing means now that it sees that as one piece. So two separate pieces, but the left-hand side it sees as one shape, and the right-hand side it sees as one shape because it's been punched through, which means that when I send it down to my SDX, if I create a 1mm outward offset line, which will give me the white layer around my card there, so it gives me my matte layer, it will automatically make the inside pieces, so the aperture bits here, it will make those smaller. So it makes the outside bigger and the inside smaller, and that's how you get that white layer inside. So let's download these to the machine, and then I'm going to come back to that after and see what happens for CM users. Right, so let's close that. Let's come back to the machine. So home and OK. Retrieve the information from the cloud. and that's going to bring on these two pieces. So let's position these right at the top. Actually, let's bring them a little bit further down because I need to move them, don't I? So let's edit, multiple select, everything on the mat, press OK. I'm going to align them just so that I've got them to the top and I know they're level, and then I'm going to group them. And now, no I'm not, I'm going to do it differently. I'm going to select that one, I'm going to create a 1mm outward offset line of the original and press OK. It will keep the original selected. So that's your black layer there. And then I'm going to do the same with this one. I'm going to create a 1mm outward offset line, which makes the outside edge bigger and the inside pieces smaller. So then you cut those two out of black and these two out of white. And you'll see that that was greyed out because when it created the offset, it took it beyond the boundaries of the mat. So if it greys out, it means it's made it bigger. It's not limited. And God, no, I can't do it because it takes it outside the mat, it takes it outside of the constraints of the mat, but you can then move it within. And you'll see it went grey, so it can't see it. Bring it back in, turns black. So that's your white layer. So the outside edge is bigger. So if I go to here, that's 134, that's 132. So the outside edge is bigger, which means that you get that white bit around the outside edge there. So you get your matte layer. But the inside detail, it's made narrower. So it's taken that in by 1mm. And that's how you get those two layers. So you cut the wider ones out of black, or this one, 132 out of black, bigger one out of white, and you put the two together. And then you score both of them and then cut a piece of card to create the back of that. Right, I'm going to see if I can do that now for CM users, because you've got to do it separately. That's the thing. So let's see if we can work this out. Let's download this to and save it to PC. I don't know if this is going to work or not, but we're going to try it. So we'll find out, won't we? Right, so if I close that, and I'm going to project plus that, so I've got it, saved it, and I'm going to get rid of those, and then I'm going to go to SVG and import it, choose file, downloads, here we are, and press OK. Right, now I'm hoping now that I can ungroup this. So if I go to edit and ungroup, okay, I can. Right, so what I want to do is create, I've got to think about this. I need to create, I'll move this one out of the way for now because we'll just need to do it on this. So if I create a 1mm outward offset line of that, but I delete the original, that gives me my outward offset line, which works because that's what it looks like. So it's made that bigger. Now what I need to do is try and get hold of all this. So I need to go to edit and order and send that to the back, which I'm then hoping allows me to pick up this detail. Oh, yeah, monkey. Right, bear with, let me do that again, because sometimes it doesn't like it when you send things to the back and then you try and get the other bits. So if I send that to the back, because I don't want to move it if I don't have to. Right, let's click on that. Let's use the shift. See, it's a bit trickier. Right, let me think about this. How can I get to that? Let's press shift, see if I can do it this way. Pick up all those pieces. The problem is some of them are sat behind. Oh no, let's go on, let's keep going, see if I can do it. Told you, dog with a bone, won't give up. Oh, don't want that one though, do I? See, it doesn't allow me, I don't think. It's because I can't move it, because if I move that outside edge, I'm not going to get it back in the same place as I did before. So I have to do it differently. So let's see if I can do it. Oh, Pete's picking that up. Right, let's see what happens if I move it. Let's see about this way, because this is the only way. Let's do that. Let's group that and group, and let's create a 1 millimeter inward and delete the original. It's then getting that back into place. That's the thing, isn't it? Getting that back to where it was before. So what if, right, so I know those two need to be aligned. Right, hang on. Sorry, this really is me thinking aloud now, so bear with. You better just watching this bit, not trying to follow it yet. So let's group that and group that. Right, let me think about this. Right, I'm going to try this. I'm going to flip this that way, and I'm going to put that. No idea if this is going to work or not, but let's try it. I'm going to take this one and I'm going to put that inside there. Oh, come on, move. Come on, move. You've got to try and find it now, because this is the tricky bit. So if I put that in there like that, and I mess about with it until I get it in the middle of there like that, right? That's that bit. And then if I flip this, flip that. Why will you not allow me to flip that now? Come on, have you done? It's probably done too many things. Go on, flip. Oh, it's not allowing me to flip it now. Right, okay, not giving up yet. Let's download it. That's going to undo and group. No, it won't. Let's do it again. Let's keep going. See if we can get there. See, the joy of having an STX is that you can create inward and outward offset lines on the actual machine itself, which you can't do on the CM. But I'm not giving in, because I'm terrible. So let's go to download and see if I can make it work. Oh, I hope what's outside the cutting area. Go on, then, what have I left this time? I don't see anything in cutting area. There's nothing there. Okay, let's do this. Import, file, downloads. Right, let's see if it'll do it now. Right, let's zoom in. So that's kept everything where it was. Right, let me see if it'll flip this. Yes, so now it'll flip it. Right, okay, so if I put that over there, and, right, let me think about this, Melanie. Undo that, put that back where it was. Let me think about how I'm going to do this. So, I don't want that one, I want the other one, I want the bigger one. That one, that's the one I want. So, this is when it drives me crazy. No, what I'm going to do is I'm going to send it to my machine. I'm going to send it to my machine because it's easier to use the select arrows, and this is the same on the CM. Right, okay, back to my machine. So, retrieve data from the cloud. I'm going to go to edit and I'm going to zoom in, and I'm going to try and grab. Right, I need that outside one. Right, I need that. So I need to move that. So I'm going to move it with my directional arrows so it doesn't affect the rest of it. Right, now what I need to do is multiple select part of the mat, drag over that bit and group this bit together. Group, right. Now I'm going to align that and that. So multiple select everything on the mat. Press OK, directional arrows, and align it centrally vertically, centrally horizontally. Press OK and tap the screen to release the shapes. Right, so Now what I need to do is ungroup that. I need to zoom in and see what's selected there. That's the inside bit that's selected. So if I move to that, and that's the outside. What's that bit? Zoom into 400%. Yes, so I've got, so I want to keep that one and I want to keep the outside one. So the next one that it gets to is a butterfly, which is that one. Oh, I'm scared. Bin it, Melanie, just do it. There you go, that's it. Right, so there you go. Now you can group that together. So for your CM machine now, you can do it. You just need to send it back to your machine and select it. Whew, that was a bit long-winded. I apologise for that, just a bit. But that's the process that my brain goes through. Imagine living in here. Imagine what that's like. But there's always a way. And I am a little bit stubborn. In fact, if you ask my husband, he'd tell you, if you ask Stephanie, she'd tell you I'm the most stubborn person she's ever met. But it means that you can do it. So there's always a way. Right, so just to conclude, from that one stencil and the butterfly stencil, so from 2 stencils, we've made loads of different stuff. Play around with the other stencils. I'm just going to really quickly just whiz through what the stencils were, because we're going to put a link into this video. So if you want to buy the download, you can. So if I do this on my overhead camera, which is perfect, these were your charismatic. Now you could buy them individually, but they'll be on a deal as a bundle. So get them as a bundle. I have removed the squares that were around the outside, separating them out. So if you wanted just the outside edge with that frame, you could do it. The inside edge with that one and that one together, that, etc., etc. So that was your first one. Then you had Dreams Come True. Then you had The Best Is Yet to Come, which is lovely with the butterflies, and you'll get something different out of all of these. Then you've got Enchanting. You also had, there was another one somewhere, this one with the little bumblebees and the hexagons. You could have a lot of fun with that one. And then also the leaves and the foliage. Then we had the small ones, so that was the butterfly that we did. Then you had a flower, that'd be nice as a Gatefold card. Then you had the heart, that one would be fabulous because you can do all sorts with that. Then we had relations that gave you uncle, aunt, wife, in-law, step, child, daughter, grandson, son, granddaughter and husband. We had relations too that gave you mother, brother, grandmother, grandfather, mum, father, dad, sister, grandma and granddad. Then we had occasions which gave you with love, all of us, fabulous, wonderful, amazing, 2 hour and both of us. And then you had happy birthday, thank you so much, to you from hugs and kisses and with sympathy. And then you had the fetching florals, and these are lovely. Absolutely lovely. If you honestly, if you can only stretch to one, get the florals because they're beautiful. Our favourite ever stencil that we've ever done, which is the Magnolia, which when you use our foil pen looks like that. You could use this with the foiling starter kit that you can get with the ScanNCut, and you would fill it. So draw fill function will fill it in and colour it in for you. So you've got that, and then you've also got that beautiful rose. Now it looks weird there because there's a little bit that was missing when I downloaded the file. It's complete in yours, just so that you know. So it looks like that, not like that. Right, that's enough of me talking. Sorry about the long-winded bit for CM users, but I need to keep hold of you because without CM users, the SDX wouldn't exist. So there's a class to keep you going for a little while. And don't forget to tune into our live shopping shows, which we're now doing here at Highlight Crafts, which is super exciting. Brilliant way to shop because you don't have to go away from watching what we're doing to shop. You can shop as you watch, which is fabulous. And I've done that a lot. Every time I go in that studio, I spend more money, but it's fantastic. And I will see you all very, very, very soon. You take care. Lots of love. Bye-bye. If you want to see more from Highlight Crafts, make sure you click the like button. Subscribe by clicking the subscribe button below and click the bell icon to receive notifications of all our future content. You can also click here to see our latest video or click here to see more videos like this one.